Hello and welcome to the Midrash portion of today's reunion roadmap. Barry Phillips here and David Jones, both elders with B'nai Yosef. David, I trust that you're doing well today.
Yeah, doing great, Barry. Looking forward to this program today.
Oh, awesome. We'll jump right into it. As normal, we normally run out of time before we can fully investigate what we're trying to talk about. David, I was reading recently in Second Corinthians, the first chapter, and it's a passage that has always intrigued me. When you get down into verse 9 and 10, Rav Shul, the Apostle Paul, is indicating that they had been in a situation where they had despaired of life. They had already determined, we're going to die. Um, Thankfully, I haven't been in such a situation where I just knew this is it. But he says, again, this is Scripture's translation. Indeed, we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in Elohim who raises the dead, who rescued us from so great a death and does rescue, in whom we trust that he shall still rescue us. Uh, Prior to that, he makes a statement that this grace or strengthening or favor or an ability to overcome had been given to them in an abundant measure, and that they longed to come to the Corinthian congregations to share that. I was meditating on that this morning and thinking, it seems to me that whatever he received or they received in this crisis situation was not only substantial, but substantive, or can we even say that grace or favor or chesed is tangible?
Mm.
How do we look at the favor or the grace or the intervention of Yah's strength to be a tangible something that we can actually pass along? Is there a possibility to that?
That's a great question. I like how Brad Scott puts it. Faith is substance and evidence. And that goes along with the grace that's been given to us. So we have within us the faith in Yahweh that He will give us what everything that we need in the midst of no matter what we seem to be facing. And man, I reading this passage with you, Barry, I'm looking, can you imagine being at such a place to where you say, that's it, we're going to die. We just know that God's going to resurrect us. I mean,
Yeah.
when we go through hard times and things like that, I mean, we normally pray for deliverance, or we pray for the means to get through it, or no, all that's already out the window, all that's gone, we're dying. And and we're saying, but God will resurrect us. To just to be at that place is amazing in itself. And then they made it through. And so I think so. Yeah, did Yahweh extend His grace to them to do that? Yeah, but then the question is, okay, so was grace just unmerited favor, or is grace an empowerment and an ability to do what He's asked us to do? Because here He is. So let's just use an example of possibly being shipwrecked. You think maybe, and saying,
Yeah.
okay, so it's okay. You'll make it. My I'm gonna give you favor that you didn't merit, and you just need to paddle a little faster. I mean, that's not going to do much good in the midst of an actual physical danger that you're facing and looking at. But when we understand that His grace is an empowering to us to equip us to do what He said. Now comes the question of Shaul. Are you doing this because the Father has put it in you to do this? Or are you doing this because you just felt like it was something to do? And now he's on a mission. He has a purpose. And because he
Yeah.
has the purpose and he's fulfilling this for the Father, I believe this is where he's being extended that grace to make it through these things. And that's why he has that hope that they can trust. Even if he dies, Yah will resurrect him. It makes me think of Avraham when he put Yitzhak on the altar.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. The shipwreck that Rachel describes in detail in Acts, they had taken all the ship's tackling and sails and thrown them overboard. They had lightened the ship of its cargo, tied it together with ropes. They had done everything that they knew to do, and the storm was so great and fierce they still were despairing of life. And it wasn't 14 days. Rav said we had neither seen the sun or any light. Can you imagine being at 2 weeks in a hurricane level storm like that? And he said, a messenger has appeared to me tonight and let me know that if we'll stay with the ship, all of us will survive. You know, Rav was such a high level Sadiq that all of the ship's crew and captain were given safety and safe passage in the end result because of Rav Shul. You have to go and appear before Caesar. So therefore, everyone on this ship will survive because the mission that has been trusted to you. I would dare say that I don't know if that's the exact same circumstance that he's referencing here, but it really does fit. At least it's comparatively available to us in that regard. That his mission was of such importance that Yah says, "I will give you the crew."
Mm. There's a question for that, Barry. I mean, so here we have Shaul being in such a place with Yah's grace being given to him, and because it was on him, it had an impact on those that were with him. So is this something that Yahweh was giving to the people that were there with Shaul just because they were there with him?
Kind of makes you want to question who you are hanging out with.
Yeah.
You know, you find the guy or the lady that is absolutely vital and hang close. You know, I asked a question or made the statement one time, if you want to survive the last days and be among those that go into the kingdom of life alive, then make yourself indispensable to the kingdom's effort. That you cannot be one of those that, you know, are expendable. So that means stepping up your game and really walking in a level that requires that you actually be around. I like what you referenced earlier, David, that faith, in Brad Scott's definition, faith is
substance and evidence.
Substance and evidence. So faith and concepts like grace and mercy are not theoretical or
abstract.
They are concrete. They are tangible qualities that can be passed on. And it is up to you and I to give them a physical realm revelation. For example, I can tell you that I have great faith, but until I find a way to demonstrate in obedience to his word that faith, then it's just a concept. It's just a figure in my mind. So if I say I believe, and then I go and I minister to someone else's need, whether it's giving shelter or clothing or food or laying hands on them and praying for their deliverance and their healing, and it become tangibly evident that they have received such, giving them my time and being broken with those that are hurting. If I will demonstrate what I say to believe is true, then faith has become substantive. It's not just a theory. The same thing goes in showing mercy. We all want mercy. And if you want it, you better be willing to show it.
Exactly.
If you don't want to be judged, then stop judging everybody else. So that, you know, there is an acting out of these spiritual concepts to give them life and form. Otherwise, we don't know whether we really have these things that we claim or not, do we?
Well, we see things like, Abraham believed Yah and it was counted to him as righteousness. We see things like, but Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. I mean, when we see things like that, how are we supposed to take that? These are men who didn't just have abstract thoughts about Yahweh or who he was. These are men who had personal experiences with him. And they heard him and they followed him. And I think that's something that we need to learn from too. I mean, if we say we have faith, like James says, show me. Because it's not something that you're just going to talk about. It's something that's going to be evidenced, and it's something that can be seen. So your faith is noticeable in you. And I think about, even going back to Noah here for a second, when he was rescued, right? He was left in this ark. His family was with him. Why? Because he says, because you have found grace in the eyes of Yah, because you, Noah, are a righteous man, because you. And so this makes me think of the scriptures where it says, and so even your whole household will be saved.
So the grace that Noah had was not in theory, it actually delivered him from judgment.
But at the same
time, that
time,
grace took the form of a boat.
But it didn't stop judgment.
No, but it gave them the ability to overcome,
yes,
and persevere in the middle of it.
And I think that is where grace is not just sufficient, but abounds.
So leads me to a question then. Are we willing to have to persevere through extreme trying circumstances in order to receive something that's not just for our benefit, but even more for someone else? I'll give you a quick case in point. I know we're running quickly out of time here. When I was a young evangelist, I wanted these war stories where I could use to describe how, give some color and some illustration to my sermon points. But until you go through those, you don't have those war stories. So I had to be willing to go through trying circumstances. Now, when I shared the report, people were encouraged and thinking, well, if the Father did it for him, he'll do it for me. But I had to go through the stuff first. It's not fun going through the stuff. And you actually despair as to, will this work or not? So when you're in a crisis and you get on the other side, now you've got a war story that may help somebody else. But they got to go through it too. You can't prevent hardship.
Yeah. It makes me think of not just like my first thought of, well, grace is transferable, but it's not really transferable. That's not the best word for that. It makes me think of, for lack of a better term, I'm just thinking of like lighting a candle. When a candle lights another candle, does the first candle lessen its flame? No, not at all. And to me, that's kind of how I'm thinking along those lines. When Yahweh shows us his grace, and when he shows us the things that he wants to do through us, I think others can be lit off of that.
Actually, the more you give away, the more you retain for yourself, do you not?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're just multiplying without loss of the original source. So if we receive grace, a strengthening from Yah in a crisis situation, and we never try to give it away, can we expect it the second time around?
Now there's food for thought.
I just had a thought.
And we don't have time for that.
So Yah evidently, David, will entrust to us trying circumstances, knowing that we will seek him. He will grant to us what we need, and we won't keep it for ourselves. So Yaakov's words, count it all joy when you fall into diverse tribulations and tests. You're about to receive the mercy and the strength of Yah. Last thought, we're getting ready to run out of time here.
Well, I think when the Father gives us something, it's for the purpose of giving it away.
I think that's well concluded. If you have questions, comments, things you'd like for us to discuss, please contact us at reunionroadmap@b'naiyosefna.com. Thank you for your time. Thank you, David, for joining me today. And we hope this has been an encouragement to all of you.
Thanks,
So
Greg.
long.